Alright, I just want to tell you a little story about Australia. Little story about history. About spirituality. About seeing and connecting. About what would God want? Now here in Australia, way back a couple hundred years ago, we got to a point where there was one country that hasn't thrived, a real big one. It's a big country. Right? Little ones, you don't expect little islands to thrive too big out in the world because they're so small. Right? Even though they're so luxurious of land, of trees and stuff on their land, and they do really good, they still can't thrive out in the world because they're so small. Right? And then we got Australia. It's huge. It used to have a big sea in the middle of it and all sorts of things. It used to be different. Perhaps it used to be like that back in the Aboriginal story. To get the Australian story here, like we have in history all around the world, we go back in the culture, the oldest culture, what was around, what buildings were around and stuff like that, and it explains some stories as we truck along. And so when it comes to the Aboriginals, they never upgraded from hunter to gatherer landholders. That's what they do. They say they're for the land. That's all right. We all used to be like that if you go back in history. And they had a story like we've all had. And we, in a lot of countries, they worshipped and helped out their spirit gifts, right? The Indians and all that kind of stuff. And Australian people, well, they've got a story about the rainbow serpent that turned up, right? And then it went all around the world, and then it turned up to Australia, right? And it hung out with the Aboriginals. And then while it was sleeping, the Aboriginals decide, because they're jealous and envy and all that, so they haven't upgraded. They failed their test, as you can say in this story. They went and killed the rainbow serpent and let out all the animals, and now they got punished to look after the land. Perhaps that's what kept them back. Right? For a long time, they didn't get no downloads from the universe to upgrade them, as people talk about, as Nikola Tesla talked about. Tapping in, you got to earn it. It's like a spiritual thing. Right? And if you get put out, then you're not going to get that. Right? And I see, this is my interpretation, you let me know if you've got something different, that's okay, we all speak things. But this is my truth of what I see using common sense and science of what I've been taught to. And so they killed the rainbow serpent, they got all these lovely animals, and they have to look after, that was their story, because it's a story, right? It's not 100% truth, but there's truth there. Right? So you try to get the truth out of this story. And then all of a sudden, they're all by themselves for ages. Right? They have to look after themselves. They don't mind running around. They don't mind being sewer maidens, as some people would call hunter and gatherers. Low class. Right? And then along comes English. They had a problem with their people. And over there, they actually had domination, control when it comes to their religion. Their religion went crazy. And they started locking up people for nothing. Right? A little bit like we've got around the world today. And they called them convicts, but they weren't. A lot of these people really actually weren't. They're actually the best of their people. When you look at it, it's quite odd. And then they load up the best of their people, and the toughest, and they sent them off because they didn't want to deal with them, put them in a concentration camp. And they rocked up to Australia, as Captain Hook recently cruised around it and found it when it comes to the English. And so we turned up. And we wanted to be peaceful, we wanted to get along, we wanted to use our controlling rules, right, a little bit. Back in those days, you know how it goes. We weren't pretty that fair, but if you gave it time, we could heal, as we've been doing, right, as these tyrants have died off, and Australia's become a little bit free from England, right? And we've got our story all about all that, and what happened there, right? And we got along, but then we didn't get along. The Aboriginals got upset at the things we did, and there was a big battle. We went off. We got the winning side. I suppose that could be the spiritual. Now, what I want to talk about, even though it's bad, right? But sometimes things need to be bad, as we've learned. Bad people need to cop bad things. And so what happened is that the Aboriginals got upset again. So what I believe is they had a chance. See, to get download, it was connection. All the other countries had connection. Wars, connection. They got chances, connection. So they had their connection, a little connection to the islands, but not a well big connection to something big. Right? And they had the rainbow serpent, the spiritual connection, and they pooed on that one. Right? And then they learnt some ways, they learnt some stuff, and they decided to go neutral on hunting and gathering, as they speak about what they had to do in their story, look after. But they couldn't upgrade to still look after. Right? But their way of thinking of look after all the way up till the time we met them, was to hunt and gather, right? When we met them. And so we did our thing, we pulled off, they got upset, and instead of getting along with us, right, I see it that it's a lesson for both of us, right? And it's not so much a lesson for the ones that come. The ones that come, it's a new start. As I talked about, most of these people were actually good people getting done over, right? And I see that spiritually as the Aboriginals getting a new start of education and knowledge. If they just get along, they're going to have differences, but in the end, if they get along, they get to upgrade. Right? They get to have their chance finally to become what they are and how they do things and upgrading their image with a connection. Right? Because everything that's upgraded overseas, they've all upgraded with another image of connection. No one's upgraded all by themselves. If the Aboriginals seem to do that and kick us out and then seem to come the world power and have all this knowledge and upgrade, well, so be it. But I don't see that happening in history. It's never happened. Right? That'll be another self-thinking, stuck-up way of thinking things. Right? You've got to connect. And they haven't connected really to anybody, have they? Right? And if that happens, what can happen to their curse? Could it get better? Has their curse gotten better since we rocked up, or has it got worse? Did the white people make it better? Did they make it worse? They've made it worse in some points recently with technology and stuff like that. But when it comes to when they first rocked up, they had it worked out quite well. They fed their people. In fact, in the end, they had to start feeding the Aboriginals because the Aboriginals had climate problems and they'll see us. That's why they got jealous again, because they had to look for it, and when they didn't find it, they're like, oh, we're hungry, we're going to go over here. When we try to teach them, look, the bird's about to get a little, oh, got it, little butterfly. It's just nature. Sometimes they leave it, sometimes they don't. When there's food around, more food, which I haven't fed them much at the moment because the food's low and hard to get, they leave it alone. Just like any creature when they're more hungry, so you might see more of other things. But when there's no food around, you might see less of other things. Butterflies, you see. But anyway, that's my truth of what I believe the story is, and I believe if they get along with us, they'll heal that curse, and we'll find a better place to be, and we can all get along, right? The first Australians, as I call, all the other ones that have turned out in the last 50 years and all that, I believe they're the third annoyance, right? They say third party. Well, they're the third party, the mixture. Right? First, you got the first two that really built this place, the English and the Aboriginals. They fought for this place in World War II too. All the other guys, they turned up now in the last 50 years, 30 years, 20 years, and they're the third party. All these other countries, India and all these, but then they try to call us a mixed culture now. Right? But at first, it was just English mainly and Aboriginals. Right? And now we've become this mixed culture, but it still is mostly English and Aboriginal. Right? And the others are sort of catching up as we've let them in. But now we've become a mixed culture. Right? Now, what we need to do is, we're a mixed culture, but we can't be mixed countries and all in one and this little bubbleheads. When they come here, like certain people would say, like in America, a black lady, they need to be Australian. And before they come here, we need a pause moment. We need to make what is Australian. Aboriginals with white, obviously, because we've fought a war. Those two ain't going to leave. Right? They fought together. They've earned most of this land. The incomers last 20 or 30 years, Indians and all these people trying to make them something, and then maybe have kids here and all that. Other that, there's not that many. They can't really they can put a say in, but not really. We need to find out, they can put a say in to find out how we can connect with these people now and how they're going to convert to be Australian. You want to live here? Be Australian. Right? We don't want to hear all these, too much of your culture. You can put your culture in to be Australian, but we're not going to be your culture. Right? And that's what we need to figure out. I'd love to do that. And it'll take a few years with they need to work with the government system in that area and work that out and get these rules and make Australia again and make a new Australia Day when we figure that out. And there's your true Australia Day, not just the English, you see? But anyway, hopefully all that happens. The third party can come in, or they can run back to their culture. If they believe they don't fit, we'll go back. You stayed here, now leave. You don't want to be an Australian, leave. But if I want to move overseas, if I found out other places are better, which I feel at the moment, right? as we're in today now, and countries have been different at different times, that I believe I fit somewhere else, that I can get around their country and fit in and heal better and eat something and all that kind of stuff and have things better for me than here in Australia. Right? And so as soon as I can leave, and if I had the opportunity to leave, I would. So if you do that. Go back to where you fit. Don't try to change where you are. I've got people around me now that I was here first, and then they rock up and they just, I didn't do nothing wrong, and then they want to say leave. They want to bully and intimidate. These people just need to leave, don't you think? Otherwise, get along. Have a good one, everybody, and see you later.